What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I am going to be reviewing the finale of The Mandalorian Season 2, Chapter 16, The Rescue. Now, if you haven't seen the episode, I strongly recommend you click off now. There's already kind of a spoiler in front of you, but if you don't want to be spoiled on the content of the episode, please click off now because I do not recommend you get spoiled like I did. But anyway, let's get into the episode. So, if you guys saw my Instagram story yesterday, you saw that I said I did not love this episode. And I do not love this episode. I don't think it's the best episode of the series. I don't think it's the best episode of the season. It had some things that disappointed me. And on paper, they're very strong. But when I actually look at it as a whole, it didn't really please me as much as I think it pleased other people, and it did let me down a little bit. This season finale let me down a little bit, but I guess we'll just talk about what I liked. I really did like the introduction of the episode, or the intro to the episode. We have Boba and Mando and his crew in the opening scene chasing down the Dr. Pershing character to try and get more information on Moff Gideon's light cruiser so they can launch their assault to recapture Baby Yoda. Then we go and drop in on Bo-Katan and one of her buddies. I'm not sure what happened to the other character, but Bo-Katan and one of her Mandalorian night owls, I believe. They get in a little bit of a scuffle with Boba. They don't seem to like Boba. That was actually kind of interesting because Bo-Katan did mention, "Oh, I've heard your voice thousands of times. You're a clone," and I never really knew there was some kind of feud between the Mandos and the clones. That was kind of interesting to actually see that, because she worked with the clones, so I didn't know she had this weird distaste for them. So that was actually kind of interesting to see. But they get in a little bit of a scuffle. Eventually, Bo-Katan breaks up the scuffle, even though I found that kind of odd because she, to some extent, did provoke Boba by referring to his father Jango as a donor rather than his father, which was kind of an asshole-ish thing to do. But anyway, they organize a plan. They are going to break in and steal the ship for their mission head. Like, exactly what I thought was going to happen. Mando returns to Bo-Katan, says, "Hey, the child's been taken, but I know where Moff Gideon is. Like, there's a lot of resources there that you can use to retake Mandalore." So she agrees to help him out. They organize a plan. They break in while Mando tries to lock down the Dark Troopers. He barely makes it. He faces off against one of the Dark Troopers and is able to eventually take it down with the Beskar spear, while the rest of the team smashes their way to the bridge. Mando eventually is able to make it to Baby Yoda's cell, but he finds Moff Gideon holding the Darksaber to Grogu's head. And they have a little discussion, and he's like, "Oh, this used to belong to Bo-Katan, and just assume that I know everything." Obviously a very smart guy. He knows all about Mandalore. He knows all this stuff, and he's definitely a very conniving character. And then eventually Mando's like, "I want to take the child. I don't care about the weapon." And then he's like, "Okay, fine, sure, I'll let you go. Take him. I see your bond. I just wanted to study its blood." And eventually we'll be able to, his gift will be able to bring a new order to the galaxy. I believe a reference to the First Order, but we still do not know what exactly he was using the blood for. But of course, he's just tricking Mando. Mando decides to fall for the stupid trick again, like he does in like every episode. I don't know why Mando decides to be so dumb all the time, but he falls for it. Moff Gideon attacks him with the Darksaber, like hacks at him. I can see how Giancarlo Esposito broke the Darksaber prop, as he said on set, because that was a pretty ferocious moment. They have a very short battle, which I was kind of disappointed in, but there is a reason for it, as we will see later on. So he's able to take out Moff. He's able to take the Darksaber and the reclaim Grogu. They take him to the bridge, but Bo-Katan looks very concerned, and then Moff Gideon brings up the rule that we all know to be a part of Mandalorian society, or we know to be a rule of the leader of Mandalore from the Clone Wars, is that in order to claim the rightful position as ruler and to claim the Darksaber, you have to beat the former owner of it in combat, in like kind of a ritual combat. It's very similar to the Elder Wand, like the wand chooses the wizard from Harry Potter. So Bo-Katan's kind of like, "Oh shoot, am I gonna have to fight Mando?" Like, they have this kind of interesting moment, but then it gets interrupted. Now, the thing that bothered me about that scene in particular is that I get it. That was a thing that existed in the Clone Wars. It's a similar thing to the Elder Wand, like I said previously. And it was previously established in Star Wars as a thing. Like, Maul takes out Pre Vizsla, he takes rightful ownership of the Darksaber and a rightful place as ruler of Mandalore. But then in Rebels, they do away with that a little bit, because Sabine literally finds the Darksaber lying on the floor and then tries to give it to Bo-Katan. She won't accept it at first, but then eventually does, despite the fact that she did not beat the former owner of it in combat. And Moff Gideon, in chapter 11, I believe, or chapter 3 of this season, or episode 3 of this season, Bo-Katan was acting under a strong assumption that Gideon had it, but she didn't know for sure. So I believe that Gideon actually stole it, and he did not beat the former owner of it, being Bo-Katan, in combat previously. So that rule kind of confuses me, because I don't understand why it matters anymore, because the two former owners of the weapon didn't win it fairly in combat. So I don't know why. At least we don't know if they fought or not, but Bo-Katan didn't seem to know for sure whether or not he had it, even though she had a very strong assumption that he did. So that leads me to believe that she never fought him. So we know that Bo-Katan did not win it from the former owner of it in combat when she claimed to be ruler of Mandalore and Rebels. And we know that Moff Gideon most likely did not beat her in combat to take it either. So why does this rule even matter anymore? I liked that because it added significance to Moff Gideon losing the fight with Din Djarin, because it wasn't just him being weak. He actually had a plan, and he was being smarter. He was outsmarting all of the people in that room. But at the same time, why does that rule even matter anymore? Like, I appreciate, like, they're kind of trying to ignore Rebels a little bit, which I appreciate, because, like a lot of people I know, I don't like Rebels. I prefer Clone Wars, and I'm glad that this series is acting more as a sequel to Clone Wars. Like, Ahsoka looks more similar to her Clone Wars counterpart than to the Rebels counterpart. I appreciate that, but at the same time, there needs to be some level of consistency, because Rebels is canon, and I don't get why that rule even matters at this point. So that kind of annoyed me a little bit, but we can't have too big of a face-off here with Bo and Mando, because the Dark Troopers return after Mando launched them out of the airlock earlier in the episode, and they're marching up here. He sends I think he said it was a platoon of Death Troopers, or Dark Troopers, sorry. So they start breaking down the door. Everyone's looking kind of freaked out. They're like, whoa, what the heck are we gonna do? And this is the part that bothered me. We see an X-Wing fly in, and it lands in the docking bay, won't identify who it is, and we see a cloaked figure walk through the hallway, and then we see that cloaked figure pull out a lightsaber. On the monitor, we can't see what color it is, but once it cuts to the actual figure in color, we see that it's a green lightsaber. He starts taking on the Dark Troopers with ease, just slicing them up, using the Force, taking them all out, slowly, like, fighting his way to the bridge. And this bothered me, not because I didn't want to see this happen, because they set this up. It was set up from the end of chapter 13, The Jedi, where Ahsoka said, take him to the planet, and that was when everyone started theorizing who would show up. We didn't know if the ritual would be completed. It was completed in chapter 14, so we knew a Jedi would show up. I actually thought it was going to be Ezra Bridger. I did not expect it to be Luke Skywalker. But the thing that bothers me is that our lead characters don't really get a moment of finality in this finale. This finale of The Mandalorian is supposed to be the finale of this season of The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, not Luke Skywalker, showing up, Deus Ex Machina, chopping up Dark Troopers. That's what annoyed me, because we have very skilled combatants, even the ones that aren't wearing Beskar. We have half of our team is wearing Beskar. The other half of our team are also skilled warriors, and we have two weapons that can take on the Dark Troopers. We have the Dark Saber and the Beskar Spear, which we established can take them on. If a lightsaber can take them on, I'm pretty sure a Dark Saber can take them on, and we established that the Beskar Spear can take them on. So we have two weapons that can take them on. I would have preferred to see our main cast of characters try to fight them. I always love that kind of ending where the heroes are cornered, but they're still going to keep fighting. And then at the end, like, when they're about to be beaten, our little, backup, our endgame moment happens where they come through the portals or whatever. I don't like Endgame, but I can't deny that scene was at least somewhat well done. and I think was better than this. Because what annoyed me about this is that we don't get to see our heroes really fight. We had a small fight with Moff Gideon, which still disappoints me. I feel bad for Giancarlo Esposito. He deserved better. He needed more screen time. I was really disappointed that he didn't get a lot to do here. And they also kind of ruined his intimidation factor a little bit by having him be kind of a jokester and being more of a comedic character. He was acting kind of silly, and he was a little bit silly in the first season, but he still was intimidating. I felt they ruined the intimidation factor a little bit here. But I wish we could have seen our heroes fight a little bit. You know, like, they have tools, they have Beskar, they can fight these guys. So I would have preferred to see them fighting a little bit, like maybe like a couple minutes of them fighting them. They take out a couple of them, but they're eventually overwhelmed. They don't stand a chance against them. And then that's when we have our Jedi, Luke Skywalker, showing up to save them. I didn't want to see him do all the work for them. That's what bothered me. Because in The Mandalorian, I want to see the season finale of The Mandalorian being our heroes fighting the bad guys, not another character showing up to beat the bad guy for them. That's what bothered me. Because in the first season, you know who took down Moff Gideon at the end of the first season? The Mandalorian, not Luke Skywalker. And I mean, well, yet again, they did take down Moff Gideon in this season, but it just bothers me that we don't get to see our heroes actually at least try to fight. Because I know eventually, even though they do have the weapons that can stand up against them, and they do have Beskar, they would eventually be beaten, just like Moff Gideon said. But I would have liked to see them at least try, at least start to fight. And then that's when we have our end game moment where our hero shows up to save the day. I just wish we could have gotten that. I was not happy with the way they executed it. So we have Luke show up. He chops up all the droids. He shows up in the bridge, takes off his hood, and it's like some weird CGI Mark Hamill face, which honestly did not entirely look like Mark Hamill, and it was very odd. It looked very similar to Tarkin from Rogue One, like his lips weren't entirely moving naturally. It looked quite strange, but it wasn't as bad as that, and although it was distracting, it wasn't nearly as distracting as Tarkin and some of the other CGI de-aging work they've done in Star Wars. I don't know why. I think it's the same visual effects company, but the de-aging work in Marvel is considerably better than the de-aging work in Star Wars. I don't know why, but every time they do it in Star Wars, it just looks weird. There's something weird about it. In Marvel, most of the time, it actually does look convincing. But Luke shows up. He says, I need to take the child. He's like, oh, come here, child. And Din is still trying to hold on a little bit. He's trying to be like, hey, no, he doesn't want to go with you, but looks like he just wants your permission. He needs to come with me. I promise I'll keep him safe. I'll give my life to protect him. And that's what we needed this entire time. Din Djarin was not only looking for a place where he could take the child, but he also needed someone to keep him safe. Not just a person to help him harness his abilities. He needed someone to keep him safe, just like he said to Ahsoka a couple episodes back. And Luke Skywalker is that perfect person. The first thing he says is that I will give my life to protect the child. So he needed a person like that to show up and save Grogu, and I appreciate that that's what happened, even if the CGI work does look kind of weird. R2-D2 walks in, he rolls in, Grogu seems to like him, R2 seems to like Grogu. That was a nice little moment. And as their last moment together, Mando, picks up Baby Yoda, he touches his helmet, and then Mando takes it off. So for this one last time before he lets him go is when he actually shows him his face. And I thought that was really powerful. I thought that was really well done. And Mando's whole arc throughout the series has been very interesting. It's not this type of character we established in the early season 1, that it's not in the Mandalorian's reputation, this warrior race, to be this passionate about something. And by the end of it, Mando is willing to risk it all and give up what he believed in order to save this one thing that he loves. And I think that's really powerful. I really appreciated that. It's like that's a really great journey for that character to go on. Sometimes in real life, that's what happens. You have to, risk everything. You have to, if you really do care about someone that much, you have to do everything in your power to ensure that they are okay. And that's what Din did here. And really well done scene. That was a really good scene. But Luke takes Grogu. The elevator door closes, and Luke heads out, and that's the end. It's the end of the season. There's no concept art, directed by Peyton Reed. I'll say that Peyton Reed did a much better job with this episode than he did with Chapter 10. Although Chapter 10 was not a poorly directed episode. It was more like the writing was kind of a problem with that episode, but the directing was actually fine. But we get a post-credit scene. Boba goes back to Jabba's palace on Tatooine after fulfilling his debt for Mando. Him and Fennec show up. They free one of the slave ladies. It looks like Bib Fortuna is now taking over the operation. He shoots him, takes the chair. Fennec sits on the side of the chair, drinks some blue milk, and then we get a tease for the Book of Boba Fett coming next Christmas, so a year from now. Pretty cool. Pretty exciting. That's cool to see, you know? I wish Boba, like a lot of people, I think... Well, actually, no. You know what? I'll retract that statement. People are going to complain that Boba didn't get a lot to do here. I wholeheartedly disagree. Because when people say, okay, he didn't do a lot in the episode, he wasn't... he didn't have a ton of screen time, besides the beginning. But he was an essential part of the mission. He needed to get them in there by, pretending to chase them. That was important for the act. That was important to be able to get them onto the ship. So, no, I'm not going to say that Boba didn't do enough or that he wasn't an important part, because he was honestly one of the most essential parts of the episode in that way. But obviously, now that he's fulfilled his life debt to Mando and the child is safe, he's going to head back to Tatooine, and he and Fennec looks like he and Fennec are taking over operations, at least in like the Hutt Syndicate or whatever. And we still don't know. There's still unanswered questions, which kind of bothers me. And I understand that these questions will probably be answered in future. Like, we don't know what they're using Grogu's blood for. We still don't know what exactly they were using it for. We don't know if he was even able to extract the blood, because Moff Gideon's a huge liar. He was lying about letting them go. So he could have been lying about actually extracting the blood beforehand, but he might have. However, I do believe in Chapter 12 they did say that extracting more blood could possibly kill him, but I think that was just like a possibly, like it could kill him, so maybe it didn't. So I don't know if they were actually able to extract the blood or not. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see, and we have to wait and see to find out what he was going to do with the blood. We also still don't know what's going to happen with Din and Bo-Katan. Like, Bo-Katan wouldn't accept the Darksaber, which I still think is kind of silly, because they did away with that in Rebels, so I don't know why it's a big deal now, and she just can't accept it for whatever reason. That was kind of annoying. And I also didn't like the weird misdirect, because when Moff Gideon sees Luke boarding the ship, he looks extremely terrified. And then he pulls out his blaster that he's been concealing behind his cape the entire time, tries to take out Bo. Bo, hits the ground. I thought she was dead. And he tries to aim at Baby Yoda, obviously, or Grogu, I think because he knew Luke was coming. He knew a Jedi was coming for the child. So if he could prevent that person from taking the child, he would just kill the child. And that's what leads me to believe that he was able to extract the blood, because I don't think he would kill the baby if he hadn't already extracted the blood. But he aims for the baby. Mando jumps in the way, blocks it, and he holds the gun up to his chin. He's about to commit suicide, but then Cara just knocks him out. So I'm not sure what I think of that. I wish that he'd gotten more screen time. I really think Moff Gideon is an intriguing character that they need to do more with, but I don't know if that'll work now that they've kind of ruined his intimidation factor a little bit with him being more kooky and silly here. I don't know how he knows so much about Mandalore. There were theories that maybe he was a descendant of Tar Vizsla, and he is a Mandalorian. That's how he knows all this logic, or that, he is descended from Mandalorians. I can't really see that happening at this point anymore, because they've kind of done away with that. But I really didn't appreciate the misdirect with Bo-Katan getting shot, because I thought she was dead, but then in the next scene she's just standing up again and she's fine. That kind of annoyed me. I really didn't like that. I wish they would have actually had stakes. And that's what makes me think that this is this finale is not as strong as the first season, because in the first season we actually had deaths that happened, the droid and Queel. However, the circumstances that led to those deaths were heavily contrived. Somehow the Imperials just end up tuning into Mando's radio frequency and end up tracking down Queel and killing him. For some reason, IG-11 didn't come out of the ship at that point to rescue him and decided not to come out to save the baby until after Queel was dead. And for some reason, IG-11 can't shoot 20 stormtroopers when they have a bunch of highly skilled blaster fighters on the boat or whatever that they're using to go down the lava river. Those circumstances were heavily contrived. However, there were still stakes there. Those characters died and they have not come back yet. This season finale did not really have any stakes. No one died. And if they had killed Bo-Katan and then Mando, in kind of memory of Bo-Katan and with her like last wish or something, like, I don't know, after Luke leaves or something, or like as Luke's coming up, I don't know, have her die and be like, oh, my dying wish is that you will rebuild Mandalore, and then have the next season be about Mando rebuilding Mandalore in memory of Bo-Katan or something. That would have been cool, and there would have been real stakes there, because that is a relatively large character that they killed off. But that didn't happen. There weren't really any stakes that happened here. There weren't really any real consequences. And that's what leads me to believe that this is a slightly weaker finale than the first one. And like I said, there were a lot of things that kind of bothered me. They also, in my opinion, failed to make the Dark Troopers seem like a true threat because they're so slow. I don't believe that, if they broke through, most of the people in that room, at least half the team had Beskar. I think they'd take a couple hits, then they just run the other direction. Those things are so slow. They're just punching the door slowly. Like, they could have just freaking, ran past them. Like, those things are really slow. I don't know why they're actually much of a threat to them at all, besides the fact that they're, basically invulnerable. I just found it kind of dumb that they were so slow and they were acting like, oh, we don't have any... Like, they literally have 2 weapons that can take them on. And I was disappointed that our lead characters, our main cast of characters, didn't really get a moment to shine. The only characters that got a moment to shine were Gideon and Din Djarin for 1 minute, where they had a short fight that ultimately kind of led to a contrived face-off between him and Bo-Katan because of the rules being very inconsistent on the passing of the Darksaber in Clone Wars and Rebels. If they hadn't done away with that in Rebels, it wouldn't be a problem. But since they did, it is a problem here. So this episode had a lot of good stuff. It had some cool character moments. It was cool to see Luke back. And I don't want to sound ungrateful for the fact that we literally got Mark Hamill, at least in some form, playing Luke Skywalker again, and we got him fighting dudes. That was a surreal moment. I was shocked. I felt so many emotions during that scene. And I don't want to sound ungrateful for what they provided here, but I still am slightly disappointed with what I got. And I don't want to sound ungrateful because I do appreciate what they did here. You got some cool character moments. But they didn't answer all the questions that were set up in this season. And like I've said before, I understand plotlines such as the Boba plotline set up at the end of Chapter 5 don't always get resolved in the same season. But for me and my personal taste in storytelling, I prefer the questions being asked to be answered within the story they're telling itself, not in a future story. That's just my opinion, of course. But I was slightly disappointed with the way they treated Moff Gideon. I was disappointed with the execution of the Luke scene. I expected that. I thought that was cool. A cool idea was that Luke would take Grogu and go train him. I like all that, but I wish we could have gotten to see our heroes actually fight and, about to go down, but then we have our Deus Ex Machina show up, not do all the work for them. That's what disappointed me. And yeah, this finale did disappoint me to some extent. I do think that in some ways this season is stronger than the first one. The storytelling, the arcs, the characters actually had more arcs here. We got to see continuations of arcs from Clone Wars. I wasn't the biggest fan of Ahsoka, but I'll talk about that in a future video. I'll talk about how I didn't like the portrayal of Ahsoka. But there was a lot of cool stuff in this season. The episodes, I think the middle episodes of the season were much stronger than the first one. And I'll say that overall, I enjoyed this season more than the first one, if not only for the experience of being able to watch it every week. Because last year I didn't have Disney Plus. I wasn't watching it every week, so I wasn't having the same experience that I had here with the suspense, the cliffhangers, and, what will happen next. I didn't have that last year, and I had that this year, and I think maybe that made me like this season a little bit more. But I really don't know. I think this is a slightly stronger season than the first one, even though the finale did disappoint me. And this is not my favorite episode of the season. I honestly think episode 7 is slightly stronger. I think that episode 6 of this season is slightly stronger. Even the first episode of the season is a little bit stronger storytelling-wise than this one was. I'm not trying to say there weren't great moments. Luke showing up, that was a great moment, even though I wasn't super happy with the overall execution. The fight between Gideon and Mando, super cool. I love that stuff. Mando having to say goodbye to Grogu, a really poignant scene. There were great scenes in this episode, but for me, it didn't fully stick the landing. And If it stuck the landing for other people, that's great. I'm happy that other people were pleased with this finale, but for me, it did disappoint me a little bit. So you guys, please let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think, what do you think of my opinion? Do you disagree? Do you agree? Whatever your thoughts are, just please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.